Well, welcome to City Hall. We'll get started this morning with the invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. I want to welcome Andrew Tevington, who's here from Leland Clegg United Methodist Church. He's going to lead us in the invocation. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Brian Walters to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand?
Let us pray. Almighty and most gracious God, as the psalmist reminds us, leadership is more than mere talk. It is action after serious study, after due diligence. Help us to remember that those who lead are called on to be in front, not in back. Are called on, however, to have followers and not to be alone. Are called on to be those who act not in haste, but after careful planning and consideration. We ask, Lord, that you bless each of the people on this horseshoe, that they might take their experiences from their lives and put it to work for the people. We ask as well that you take the experiences of the people and make them known to these individuals so that they might be true leaders, that they may be servant leaders, those who act in the best interest, not only of themselves, not only of their wards, but of this entire city. We pray in the name of all that is holy. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, may I just say a word about the invocation or invocation? What's the invocation or invocator? Person. Jane and I are attending Leland Clegg United Methodist Church for the last 9 months, and was so surprised and delighted. Was not aware Andrew was going to be here this morning as our preacher pastor. Andrew was a cub reporter, he reminds me, in the early 70s, covered City Hall, some of you might remember, and then went on to Governor Bellman's office and Corporation Commission now, and past the church I attend. Real blessing to see you here, Andrew, and a surprise, and I thank you for being here.
To see at least one City Hall reporter made something of themselves. It's nice to see that it didn't. This is a special morning. We have several outstanding members of our community that we want to honor, and I'll start with Ward 2 City Councilman Sam Bowman. Sam, would you come down? Did you clean off your desk and you're bringing your stuff with you? Is that? Yeah. Yeah. Council is saying goodbye to Sam this morning after 8 years of service for the citizens of Oklahoma City. We have a resolution. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas Sam Bowman has served Ward 2 on the City Council for 8 years, having been first elected to the post on March 18, 2003, and taking the oath of office on April 8, 2003, then again on April 10, 2007, after being reelected to a second term. Whereas in 1970, Sam moved to Oklahoma City, where he would make his home in the Cleveland neighborhood. Whereas Sam worked for the Neighborhood Services Organization as its executive director for 21 years before moving to the Oklahoma Community Foundation as its program officer. Both jobs allowed him to advocate for neighborhoods, which continued throughout his council terms. And whereas Sam was very involved with the Oklahoma City schools while his own children were enrolled, and he continues involvement with the Whiz Kids mentoring program. Whereas Sam has utilized his knowledge and expertise to develop partnerships between community groups and schools, not just in Oklahoma City, but throughout the country. Whereas Sam has been a champion for bicycle safety, sidewalk funding, and improved public transportation. Sam has been instrumental in the Chesapeake campus developments, working with all parties to achieve the most positive outcome. Whereas Sam was heavily involved in finding traffic solutions for the Penn Square Mall area by working with state and city agencies. Whereas Sam's service to the citizens of Oklahoma City predates his election to office when he served in various public capacities, including service on the Oklahoma City Planning Commission, the OKC Trails Steering Committee, and is chairman of the OKC Enterprise Committee. Whereas Sam is a devoted father to his daughters April and Samantha, and an unabashedly proud grandfather to Samantha's children, Hannah and Aaron. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Sam Bowman for his many years of dedicated service to Ward 2 and the City of Oklahoma City, and wish him the very best.
We have a motion and a second. Sam, this will be very embarrassing if we don't get at least 5 votes, but we've got a full slate. So congratulations. It's been wonderful to serve with you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank all of you that are present. All of you at City Hall. Some real mixed feelings this morning in my gratitude for these best of years, these last 8 years. Mayor reminded me that how quickly they pass. He remembers coming by, watch party, victory party the first time, ran for office at Camps Deli 8 years ago. Mayor, to you, the legacies in your time are going to be many. Bringing the Hornets, Followed with Thunder, MAPS 3. But there's a memory that I have. I think just a point in your office that made me realize truly the kind of person you are. And it was not one of those victory times. It was time around the Grand Prix discussion. And you had put it all out on the table. You were in favor of bringing the Grand Prix to Oklahoma City at that time and championed its efforts, and met with the council numerous times in small groups, publicly, forcefully put your points forward, and you listened to our debate and our discussion, which you listened attentively to, and the council voted it down. There was no bitterness. There was no anger. You held no grudges. You've held no grudges. You lost the vote that day, but I think you won so much more. And for me, the character and the leadership that you demonstrated in that time, in that action, I will remember the rest of my years. Mayor, it's been good to be with you these 8 years, and we've been together, and I kept the baseball collection. You know, we all had our baseball pictures done for us about a year ago with our stats on the back. And again, just want to thank you for.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's been an honor to serve with you too.
Thank you. And to the council, my friends, it's been the best of times. When we think not just the 8 years I've been here, the last 6 to 10 years, arguably the best years in the history of this city, without question. And we can talk all we want about maps and maps for kids and understand the importance of that and how the citizens got behind us. But I want to say that there's been something magic in the work of this council. Something about working and keeping our heads pointed for the best of the city, the best interests of this city. And we have come together time and time again after debate, discussion, argument, and to come forward with the citizens' best interest. And I want to say to each of you, I have been listened to, you've been patient with me, you've respected what I've had to say in the course of these 8 years. I can't ask personally for anything more. And I think the citizens have felt and been respected and treated in the same way. I'm going to miss that camaraderie. There's something about coming down here Tuesday, even with the schedules and the commitments and the committee meetings that we all try to find a way around. There's just something about coming Tuesday, the enjoyment of coming Tuesday and being part of this group. There's always usually a surprise, but always a feeling that it's been worthwhile. And just as a small token, I don't know if Debbie Blackburn's here yet this morning or not, but I would have asked her to help me pass those out, those books that are autographed by her husband, Bob Blackburn. Would like each of you to have just as a small token of my appreciation for your kindness, your friendship, and your work this year. I want to say, if I may, just a few more minutes, Mayor, to our city manager, Jim Couch. Jim is the longest tenured city manager, and I don't know that we know whether that's just, we know it's Oklahoma City, but whether we know that's nationally or not. But whatever it is, 11 years as city manager is unheard of. And there's reasons for that. It's been about leadership, Jim. It's been about trust. It's been about building relationships. And I think there's something, too, unique that you bring in your personality, and additionally to those traits, and that is an attitude and a demeanor of let's see what we can do about it. Not an attitude of why we can't do something, the barriers, the difficulties, but it seems that it's always first, whether it's a request from me, an individual council person, or the council as a whole. Let's take a look at how we can do it. Just a remarkable quality, and been remarkable for this city. And I think it's a reflection, Jim, with the hires that you've made since I've been on the council, looking at two of them right now. Chief City, Chief Bryant, our Public Works Director, Dennis Clowers, Russell Klaus, Marcia Slaughter, utilities person. All the hires that you've made in the time that I've been here reflect those same kind of traits. Now, I would say the department's head, the management team itself, reflects so much of that in Jim Couch. It's just been such an honor and such a privilege to be part of that wonderful, wonderful team. I looked in at the Cox a couple of weeks ago, and Jim was recognizing 25-year employees. The council chambers appeared to be full of 25-year veterans that served this city. Dedication and the smiles on their faces that I saw just let me believe that this is an indication of the kind of people working here that come to work like coming to work here. 25-year veterans that speak for all 4,000 employees of this great city. And last but not least, the council staff. Led by Debbie Martin. Debbie and I go back almost 40 years, long before City Council, working together in this community, nonprofit work together. Our daughters went to Japan together 20 years ago as part of an exchange program, a long-standing relationship. That's on the personal side. On the professional side, Debbie and her team, Boyd, Kathy, Beverly, I can't tell you any more than any other council person would tell you how indebted we are to what they do to try to make us look good. I said this Sunday, and I'll say it every time I have an opportunity. The thanks that I get from time to time publicly at the grocery store or buy for less, some little thing that happened on their person's street, neighborhood, whatever, trash pickup, whatever it was. Oftentimes, I don't even remember what it was or who the person was, and I know who's, again, behind that. 90% of the time, those thank yous, it's been the Debbie Martins and the Boyds and the Kathys and the Beverlys that's been behind us, trying again to make us look good. You know, I've been made to look pretty good these last 8 years by everybody I've been around. I've truly been blessed. I have such mixed feelings about saying goodbye because I have enjoyed it so very, very much. And I'm grateful and indebted and privileged to just be a part of all of you these last 8 years. Thank you so much.
Well, you know, Mayor, it's true to form. Sam wouldn't leave any time for the rest of us to talk, but I have to tell you, I've really enjoyed not only sitting next to Sam, but working with Sam on the City Council. He's one of those rare individuals. I don't know that I've ever heard Sam say a cross word about anybody, and he talked about you not holding a grudge and moving on. Sam's a lot the same way, and we don't necessarily always sit on the same side of an issue, but Sam always understands that there is two sides and is willing to accept the other person's argument and move on. And but I think the thing that I appreciate the most out of him is Sam has spent 8 years speaking a lot of times for those people that don't have a voice or that don't get down here and have a voice. And I think that that's the thing that we'll miss about Sam. And I have really appreciated working with him. And I hate to see him go. My desk partner.
I'd just like to say one of the privileges of being on this horseshoe is getting to know people like Sam Bowman, a man of Christian conviction, a man of character, a man of compassion, a man who's able to get along with people for the common good. And the citizens of Oklahoma City and the citizens of Ward 2 have been blessed, Sam, by your commitment and by your character and by your desire to follow our Lord. And we'll miss you, and may God bless you in the years ahead as you continue. You know, you're going to move out, but I don't think we talked about predating your council service. I look forward to seeing you post-date your council service by continuing to be a moral influence and a benefit to those folks in Oklahoma City who need your help. Thank you, sir.
I'm not, you know, as most of you know, I'm rarely speechless, but for me, it's a very personal thing. Sam has become such a friend, such a close, personal friend. I have heard Sam referred to as the conscience of the City Council. I think we need to, we all collectively need to assume that role, because without him here, we're all going to, that's a big job to be the conscience for this group of people. And we all collectively need to try to assume that ourselves because he's not going to be here next week. Again, my feelings are probably more personal than they are professional. Sam and I have become such good friends over the years with our trips, baseball trips, and things we've done together aside from being on the council and riding buses in cities like Pittsburgh and St. Louis and places to try to see what their bus system looks like. Those are memories. Those plus watching the Cardinals beat his Pirates are memories I'll probably not ever forget.
Well, and I'd like to say that I'd worked with Sam for 25 years, and everything that Councilman Mars, Councilman McAtee, and Councilman White said about Sam is true. And Sam, I'm really going to miss you. Good luck to you.
Councilman, there's a lot of positive attributes you have, but I think the thing we're going to miss most about you is that you're a diplomat. And you always believed that if two sides could sit down, they could find middle ground and come to an agreement. And that didn't always work, but it happened. It worked a lot. And you always tried to get those groups to sit down and try to come to a common ground and common understanding. And I think we just need to do more of that because you were successful a lot more than you weren't. And your diplomatic skills of smooth things out will be truly missed by this body.
Just ditto, you will be irreplaceable and you will be missed, Councilman.
Well, I don't know if I've ever met anybody that's more genuine or has a bigger heart than Sam, and it's been an absolute pleasure, Sam. Absolute pleasure.
I was going to say thank you to my colleagues for allowing me to gather my composure, and I'm not sure it worked. Sam, I think of so many things. We've been friends for a lot longer, certainly than my service on this council and yours as well. But one of my dearest memories is having you stand on the stairs of my home at your very first fundraiser. And it was a special evening, and it resulted in 8 years of wonderful service to the community. And I'm so grateful to have been able to share at least a part of this time with you, and we aren't going to let you go, I promise. There's no way you escape the clutches of...
You know, Sam, the Sunday, the reception that they had at the Boys and Girls Club was just an absolute testament of what your service has been and the benefits that people have received from your giving. I was telling someone last week when we were talking about your retirement and the legacy that I know of you, Sam, is that I don't think there is a nonprofit agency in the city of Oklahoma City that don't know Sam Bowman by either his direct involvement or his indirect involvement for the benefit of those individuals who could not do for themselves without the help of others. And so the legacy that you leave is not about anything but what you have given to others that made the quality of life for them much better. And so we're going to have a gap at this council. There's no one who ever wins that could ever fill the legacy that you leave here. And so we will always admire and honor you for what you have given to those individuals who were down and out, the common man. You have been the champion for the common man, and that's what I admire the most about you. Thank you.
Sam, it's been a genuine pleasure and honor to serve with you on the council. And although you may be stepping down as councilman, once you've been anointed as the conscience of the council, that's something you can't get away with. And either in person or by your memory and the strong impression you made on all of us, you're conscious of the council assignment will go on for a long, long time. Thank you very much.
How about one more round of appreciation for Councilman? This is never easy, Brian. Come on down. Brian Walters has served the citizens of Ward 5 for the last 4 years. We have a resolution. I'll ask the clerk to read it as we get settled.
Whereas Brian Walters has served Ward 5 on the City Council for 4 years, having been first elected to the post on April 3rd, 2007. Whereas Brian is a lifelong resident of Oklahoma City, and whereas during his term, Brian operated a family-owned optical business, obtained his master's degree from the University of Oklahoma, and completed his basic training for the U.S. Army National Guard. Whereas Brian has used his business skills and experience to help individuals, businesses, and churches. Brian has been a tireless advocate for Ward 5 residents and wholeheartedly involved in issues which directly impact Ward 5. Whereas Brian is a devoted husband to his wife Rebecca and a proud and loving father to his 2 children, Alex and Ashton. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Brian Walters for his dedicated service to Ward 5 and the City of Oklahoma City and wish him the very best.
All right, let's see if we can get some green lights, Brian. Cast your votes, and it passes unanimously. Let's show our appreciation to Council staff.
I thought for sure there would be at least one red vote up there, but apparently not. You know, I had a really eloquent, about 15, 20-minute speech prepared and gifts for everybody, but Sam took all my time, so I'll make it very short and sweet. It has been absolutely one of the greatest honors of my life to be able to serve the citizens of Oklahoma City. One of the very, very, very small percentage of the population that gets to do anything like this. It's been an honor to serve with this council. We haven't always agreed on everything, but it's always been very civil, and I've enjoyed it very, very much to all of you. You know, I want to thank my wife and my kids for sticking by me. It's the mayor said, you know, it's gone by very, very fast. I remember, like it was yesterday, standing up here and taking the oath, and my daughter was 4, and now she's 8, and it flies by, and it makes us realize that we have to appreciate every day and every opportunity that we have. So, thank you to my family, and also thank you to the voters of Ward 5. 4 years ago, they gave me the opportunity to serve them. I believe that I did that wholeheartedly, and even as early or as late as yesterday, I had somebody call that just told me how much they appreciated it, and those calls have come through for the last 4 or 5 weeks, calls from all over the city, and I very, very much appreciate the support that they've given me. So again, thank you to my family, to the voters, to the council.
And before you go, you have also been serving as vice mayor, and this is a token of my appreciation for sitting in my stead and handling the council meetings with distinction. And I know it's an upgrade whenever I'm gone, but I've had great things that occurred when I could not be here, and certainly out in the public. And we also have your badge here to take care of that. Let's show our appreciation for council.
Well, Brian, I've enjoyed getting to know you and your family since you've been on the council. And one thing about Brian is once you got to know him just very quickly, Brian has been that way all along. He's been consistent in his beliefs and is always very eager to express those. And I think I appreciate him for that, because it's rare that you get somebody that is consistent all the time through most of the turmoils they go through. But I'll most remember you for honoring our nation and our people by joining the Army and your willingness to serve, and I'll always appreciate that.
Brian, for too long, I sat here across from you and tried to get to know you just at Tuesday council meetings without much in between. And really, I'm sorry it waited so long. Pete and I began to, in the last 6 months, spend a little more time, have a few more lunches together, get to know you in a way that really began to understand you and feel a friendship for you. And regret that didn't do that earlier, but we'll find some ways. Good serving with you.
And Brian, it's been a privilege to know you and appreciate your Christian commitment, your consistency, also the convictions that you hold, how you stood courageously for them in spite of some intense opposition. And may God bless you and your family as you continue to serve him. And I know he's got a great plan for your life, and look forward to watching it unfold. God bless you, sir.
Brian, again, when I talk about Sam, my relationship with Sam being personal, well, my relationship with Brian's personal also. We became friends shortly before he came on the council as a result of a mutual friend who both of us think a lot of. And despite the fact that we've had very few, well, it's not that we haven't taken the time to try to find things that we could agree on. It's that it has been extremely difficult to find them over the last 4 years. But that has not changed the fact that Brian and I are friends. We've grown to respect each other's viewpoint, and both of us have a willingness to exchange our views with one another without that denigrating the value of our relationship, and I appreciate that. I also would like to express my admiration for the courage, despite the fact that I thought you were wrong. The fact that you, well, I mean, that's, if I said anything else, I'd be a hypocrite, and I don't like hypocrites. But the fact is that there's a lot to be admired in people that stand for what they believe in and are willing to go down for the things they believe in. And there's a lesson for all of us in that. And I think what you've done here and what you'll do in the future are going to be reflective of that extremely important character trait, and I'm proud to consider you my friend.
Brian, it has been a pleasure to work with you and for you these last 4 years, and I know from my dealings with you that you're a man of honor and integrity, and anyone who would, after having a family and serving on the council and also running their own business, that would go and join the Army and go through basic training has to be admired. But good luck to you.
Councilman, I admire the fact that you always put your family first. You always, when we had meetings and I'd ask you about your kids, you always lit up. You always smiled and we're talking about the soccer game or whatever was going on. But I really admire your conviction and your passion for the citizens of Ward 5. I know in your heart that you always had them first and you were always trying to represent how you, the citizens down there and to do whatever you could for that ward.
I'm going to miss your witty comments that you have during the council meeting, especially when Councilman White starts getting repetitive and everything. I will miss you.
Well, I hope Brian will let me tell one of my favorite stories. And Leadership Oklahoma City every year has a mock city council meeting. And the person that plays you typically will call to say, how should I play you and, what should I do? So my answer is always wear half glasses and a headband and it solves all the problems. And I said, Brian, so what did you say when the person called you? And he said, well, I just told him to vote no on everything. So I wanted to be the ceremonial red dot today. I didn't have my courage. I'm not very good about flipping the button red, but Brian will remember that. And I am going to miss you too. What am I going to do without having some of those little quips on Tuesdays? Best of luck to you. And Becca, thanks.
Well, Brian, in the short period of time that we've known each other, I have witnessed, and I think it's a pure part of real politics. And that is, I know your convictions as it relates to religion. I know your convictions as it relates to your party affiliation. And as Pete stated, the stand that you have taken from time to time is something that very few people would do. And I admire any man that will stand for a conviction in spite of those who are against him. And from the last election, the position that you took, knowing that you were going up against a wall of individuals who were against you, and even those individuals that you sat with on Tuesdays at this council were against your position. But yet and still, you took that conviction, you took your position with your conviction, and you stood out openly and publicly. And you made your statements, and that was what you stood for and what you believed. And you can't knock a man that stands up for something that he believes in. And at the same time, we came back to this council after the election, And there wasn't one bitter word that was exchanged between you, me, and as I know, I don't think any other members of this council. We were still able to go to lunch, Sam, Pete, myself, and you, and have conversations and talk about issues about this city in spite of what your position was. And so I want to let you know that I admire you for that. I want to tell you one other thing that I admire truly about you is that every Tuesday, if there was an issue about Ward 7, I had one guaranteed vote, and that was Brian Walters, because he would come up to me and say, you know Ward 7 better than anybody, so whatever you want to do, I'm with you, brother. And so I want to tell you, Brian, it's been a pleasure to serve in the short period of time that I've been here with you, and I'm sure we'll see each other again in times. And so, again, your commitment to serving your country, not too many people at your age would give up the time that you gave up and sacrifice the time away from your family and, of course, the time away from the council to do what you did. And so I wanted to admire you for that and wish you the best in your new adventure and your family and all of your family support. Thank you, sir.
Brian, I'd just like to tell you how much I admire your courage, your honesty, and the strength of your conviction. It came through clearly at every council meeting. And although we didn't always agree, we were seldom, as I recall, disagreeable about the thing. And I appreciate that very much. I appreciate, and I think the people in Ward 5 should be conscious of the fact that you are a valiant and consistent champion of their causes. And Ward 5 was well served by your tenure on the council, and I appreciate the opportunity to get to know you. Thank you very much for your service.
Let's show our appreciation, Councilman Walters. And every 6 months, we rotate the position of vice mayor, and Councilman Kelly now becomes the vice mayor. Skip, look forward to working with you in the next 6 months. Yeah. Did you know that? I mean, you had this stunned look on your face, like, what do you mean I'm the vice mayor? Why are you picking on me? This is a historic day at City Hall, and we are also going to be honoring a man who knows its history. Penn Woods is here today. And Penn, can you come forward? Penn has spent a great amount of time through his life in chronicling history. He has had a professional career as a journalist with OG&E, but has spent much of his time with his true passion, and that is the history of the state and the history of the city. And we thought it very appropriate that we would have a resolution this morning that honors Pendleton Woods and his lifelong commitment to chronicling Oklahoma history. And we have a resolution. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas Pendleton Woods has lived in Oklahoma City since 1948, and whereas Penn began his career in journalism with OG&E as editor of its company magazine and press relations. Whereas, after returning from service during the Korean War, Penn remained in the Oklahoma Army National Guard as Public Information Officer for the 45th Infantry Division, from which he retired in 1983 as Colonel after 41 years of active and reserve service. Whereas, Penn retired from OG&E in 1969 and then began working for the Oklahoma Christian College, now University, where he established and directed the oral history program, partnering with the Oklahoma Historical Society. Whereas Penn has had an abiding interest in his adopted community's history, which has resulted in his authoring and co-authoring of 9 books, with his 10th due for publication next year. Whereas the titles of some of the works produced include Church of Tomorrow, A History of the First Christian Church of Oklahoma City, Myriad of Sports in 1970, Born Grown, A History of Oklahoma City, One of a Kind, a biography of C.R. Anthony, Historic Oklahoma County, produced by the Oklahoma City County Historical Society, and his current project of writing a history of the Last Frontier Boy Scout Council, due out next year. Whereas Penn has involved himself in many worthy organizations, including Oklahoma City Beautiful, Junior Chamber of Commerce, Centennial Run of '89, Boy Scouts of America, Oklahoma City Mental Health Clinic, Oklahoma County Senior Nutrition, 45th Infantry Division Association, 45th Division Museum, Military Order of the World Wars, Library for the Blind, the National Bombing Memorial, and for the past 32 years, a Charter Life member, past president, and member of the Board of Directors of the Oklahoma City County Historical Society. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby commend Pendleton Woods for his commitment to Oklahoma City and his love of preserving our history.
All right, Penn, let's hope we can get first of all, we got to get a motion in a second. All right, cast your votes. And I will save you the trouble of turning around. It passed unanimously, Penn. How about that?
When my son told me about 3 days ago that I was supposed to be at city council meeting, I thought I was in trouble of some kind. I really, really appreciate this, and I feel that the credit should go, much to the military, to service, the National Guard, and the others' experiences in the military, but also which was not mentioned, Oklahoma Christian University, where I've been for the past 35 or 40 years there, because they have been so supportive of everything that I've done, and in particular to my wife, Robin, who's been supportive of everything I do, and who's probably the best decision I ever made in my life. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Penn, very much. Gary?
Well, of course, I'd known about Mr. Woods for a long time, but I got to know him when we were redoing Bicentennial Park over here. And, there's a saying that people use sometimes when they talk about a person and say they forgot more than I ever learned, but I'm not sure that Penn has ever forgotten anything. He was one of those people that if you want to know why it happened or what happened or how it occurred, he's the one that could tell you how it did it. And I very much appreciated getting to know him during that time, and this resolution is well deserved.
Mayor, I just want to tell you, Penn, how much I've enjoyed the things you've written, following what you've done over the years. I'm a kind of a fan of history myself, and I would like to make sure you know how much I personally have appreciated all your work over the years and all the things you're continuing to do. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Yes, Penn, I just wanted to say that I worked with you on the HP Commission back in the 80s and the early 90s, and it was a great pleasure working with you. You were always a zealous advocate for the historical issues and that came before you, and thank you for your service to Oklahoma City.
Mayor, if I could, I had the privilege of meeting Penn when I first came to Oklahoma City, I think almost 27 years ago, and he's been a fabulous friend to me, a great mentor, and we had the privilege of traveling. Penn, you remember the trip we took to Norfolk years ago with the employer's support of the Guard and Reserve? And we spent a couple of days walking around aircraft carriers and looking at submarines and getting to meet many of the young men and women in our service today. And it was a trip I will never forget, and I enjoyed so much spending the time with you. But over the years, you've helped guide me and teach me and support me in so many ways, and I'm very grateful, and I was so happy to see you here and your family this morning. Robbie, it's lovely to see you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. Having worked with Penn at OG&E several years ago, his great memory causes me some trepidation. But in addition to being a historian and having a great memory, Penn Woods is a true gentleman. My secrets are safe there. His success is no surprise to me because of the great record he had at OG&E. It was a pleasure to work with him then. It's been a great pleasure to watch his accomplishments in the years after his OG&E career. So, Penn, congratulations to you.
Again, let's show our appreciation to Penn Woods and his family. Penn, thank you so much. It is also that time of the month when we can honor our South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month. And remember, we have over 4,000 employees working for the citizens of Oklahoma City, so to choose one is a difficult task. And Typically, it's an employee that the council and I don't have much of an opportunity to interact with. In fact, a lot of times it's an opportunity for us to meet that particular employee. This is not one of those days. This person is very familiar to the council. She serves us in so many particular ways, and a person who has been in these chambers seemingly on a weekly basis now ever since I've been around here. Jane Abraham is our Employee of the Month. We have a resolution. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas Jane Abraham has been a city employee for 12 years and is the Community and Government Affairs Manager in the City Manager's Office. Whereas Jane Abraham is the staff assistant to the Council Legislative Committee, prepares the city legislative issues list, tracks legislation that affects city business, and cultivates productive relationships with state and federal legislators and their staffs, as well as the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber, State Chamber, Oklahoma Municipal League, National League of Cities, U.S. Conference of Mayors, and a number of other organizations so that they are receptive to the city issues. Whereas Jane works with the city's federal and state lobbyists, serves as the city's Recovery Act Coordinator, city's Leadership Development Program Coordinator, Land Run Monument Project Manager, LFR Coordinator, and works with departments to secure federal grants. Whereas Jane prepared the city's application for America's Promise 100 Best Communities for Young People, which resulted in the City of Oklahoma City winning this designation. Jane's work is diverse and encompasses issues that at one time or another affects every department and every employee. Whereas Jane Abraham's characteristics of integrity, diligence, discretion, and humility can be seen every day as she quietly does her job and readily offers assistance when she sees the need or when asked. And even with her demanding workload, she never complains but maintains a positive attitude in all situations and under all circumstances. Whereas this council desires to recognize Jane Abraham for her dedication, professionalism, and commitment to the citizens of Oklahoma City. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby thank and commend Jane Abraham, April 2011 South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. And we like Jane. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Well, I've been with the city for 12 years, and I started in the fire department. Councilman Mars, then Fire Chief Mars, hired me. Then I worked in the finance department, and then now I've worked in the city manager's office for about the last, 6 years. I love coming to work. Oklahoma City is the best place to work. I feel so fortunate to be here and to be working for the city. The professionalism of city employees just is matched by no other organization that I know of. And I appreciate the leadership, Mayor, from you and the council. It makes our jobs so easy with the great leadership that we have. Also appreciate my family. My husband is here today, Eric, and of course he makes my life so much easier too. So appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you. And let me say that among Jane's duties is each year there's a group called America's Promise that honors the best cities for young people. And one of the tricks is you cannot enter the same application more than 1 year in a row. So if you want to win the award more than once, you got to come up with another reason why you're the best city for young people. And with Jane's help, we have won 4 times and received national attention. And it's not that we don't do things that are best for young people, but I appreciate your creativity and your wordsmith ability to get Oklahoma City national recognition time and time again. It really helps. So thank you, Jane. On behalf of the council, we really appreciate your work.
Mayor, you know I can't pass up the fact that I like to take credit for Jane. I always tell people that, in the fire department, we groomed her and trained her, but in reality, it wasn't hard quickly to see her skill set and her personality and her work ethic and her attitude was going to take her places. So very well deserved. She's been a very great asset to the city of Oklahoma City.
Mayor, I really didn't get to know Jane until I was made part of the council's legislative committee 3 or 4 years ago. And I just, the job you do there, Jane, is very, very commendable. We probably, as a legislative committee that represents the council, really, we probably couldn't do our jobs without what you do. I mean, it's amazing how the quality of the work that you do. And I attribute that probably to our shared Norwegian heritage, probably has something to do with that. Thank you.
Jane, just a positive face on everything you do. Eric, I hope it's that way at home. I gotta believe that it is. But Jane, when you say that you really love doing what you do, it just shows throughout everything you do and every expression of yours, and it's been a joy to be around you.
And not in the resolution that I heard, Jane, but your past is serving to help the Economic Development Committee. Thank you so much for all the time and effort you did in working through the issues that we faced. And again, congratulations.
I guess Jane just a ditto. I can hardly see you over the counter, but thank you for so much help you've provided to me. I really appreciate it and enjoy working with you.
And for all those people who want to know how do we get what we get as far as the community block grants, this is the lady. This is our champion. So
I'd just like to say congratulations. She does an outstanding job in a very difficult position. Consistently and without any doubt ever does a good job. Thank you, Jane.
Mayor, I was surprised to hear what Frances read because I didn't know she did all that stuff. All I know is that on a daily basis, when there's a crisis in the manager's office, which happens on a daily basis, somebody find Jane for me. And Jane comes in and exemplifies that can-do attitude that Sam talked about earlier in the meeting. Whatever it is, whatever we've got coming down the line, the myriad of things that comes in, she's always there to take care of that. And I'm really glad to find out about the rest of that stuff. And that Norwegian stuff, that's all good.
Let's show our appreciation one more time for our Employee of the Month. We are also about to proclaim it Central Oklahoma Clean Cities Day, and Yvonne Anderson is here. Yvonne, you want to come up? We have a proclamation, and I'll ask the clerk to read it as we get settled.
Whereas Clean Cities is a local grassroots government industry program designed to accelerate and expand the use of alternative fuels and alternative fuel vehicles in communities throughout central Oklahoma and throughout the state, and to provide refueling and maintenance facilities to support successful AFV operations. Whereas the program, sponsored locally by the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments, ACOG, encourages local government organizations and businesses to form public and private partnerships to develop markets for alternative fuels and AFVs. Whereas Clean Cities works to advance the adoption of alternative fuels for the good of the economy, environment, and national energy security. And whereas it is very appropriate that tribute be rendered to the alternative fuels industry professionals of Oklahoma City and Central Oklahoma and to 15 years of Clean Cities program successes in our region. Now, therefore, Mick Cornett, the mayor of the city of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim April 7th, 2011 as Clean Oklahoma Clean Cities Day in Oklahoma City, and call upon all citizens to join him in expressing sincere respect for the many persons who earn their livelihood through their efforts in the alternative fuels vehicle industry and who are stakeholders in the ACOG Clean Cities program.
Let's show our appreciation to ACOG and Yvonne.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to invite everyone to come out to the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Expo Hall on Thursday, April 7th, for our Clean Cities Alternative Fuel Vehicle Fair. We have 30 exhibitors from Oklahoma and from Texas exhibiting, and 22 vehicles coming in, including General Motors Chevrolet Volt and the 2011 Honda Civic, which is the greenest vehicle, the cleanest internal combustion engine on Earth, and numerous other vehicles. We have everything from light-duty to heavy-duty vehicles, and I would love for everyone to come out and see what is going on in the alternative fuel field, and that includes natural gas, propane, electric vehicles, biofuels, and many, many other technological advances to help this country and our city with energy independence, and especially in Oklahoma, where we have so many wonderful natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you very much. It has become council policy that we have a member of the city council sit alongside the MAPS advisory board, the citizen board that advises the council and oversees the construction of the MAPS 3 projects. And for the past year, Larry McAtee has served the council in that role. And Larry, it's time to pass the baton on to Gary Mars, and we're about to have appointment to that. But I was thinking, you know, this program is going to be a while, and you're going to get to serve again as the rotation comes back around in 2019. So you're going to get one more shot at this, I have a feeling. On the item 3E, though, is where we are on the agenda, and this is the appointment of Gary Mars to the MAPS 3 Citizen Advisory Board. I'll ask for a motion.
I move the appointment.
All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Gary, look forward to hearing your comments in the next year.
Can I make just a short comment about that? Councilman McAtee has done a marvelous job with regard to his service on this committee. It's my understanding that he has not missed one meeting. I almost hesitate to say that because that standard for Councilman Mars will be difficult. But when I found out that you were going to be, that Gary was going to be appointed, I told him that you had not missed a meeting and that I was so appreciative that Gary would serve after you, so that if at some time later I had to serve, that's not the standard that I'd have to hold up to. So, but I appreciate very much your service. I don't think anyone would have ever expected the amount of time that you've been able to put into it and the quality of the work you've done, and I appreciate it very much, personally.
Interesting. All right, on to item 3F. This is the appointment of Larry Nichols to the Urban Renewal Authority. Ask for a motion. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. I'll also mention that this opening is the result of Stanton Young choosing to step down from the Urban Renewal Board after I don't know how many decades, but we're going to be bringing Stanton in here in the coming weeks to honor his service to the citizens of Oklahoma City, and we're appreciative of Larry Nichols agreeing to rejoin the Urban Renewal Board. On to item 4, it's the Journal of Council Proceedings. Item 4A is to receive the Journal of Council Proceedings for March 29th, and item 4B is to approve the Journal of Council Proceedings for March 22nd. Cast your votes in the Journal, and it passes unanimously. And item 5 is request for uncontested continuances. Look like we have at least one.
Mayor, outside of item 8B, which is listed on your docket to be continued until April 26th, there's a couple of more on page 9 under item 8H1. Under H1C, 6701 Gaelic Glen, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured. And item E, 2909 South Walnut Avenue, we ask that that be stricken. The owner has secured.
Any other requests for uncontested continuances? All right, we'll recess the council meeting. Convened as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority, where there are 3 items. Comments or questions on the MFA?
Yeah, I had one on item A, Mayor.
Okay.
I'd like to get an explanation of what we're going for in this request for proposal. It appears we're actually asking for bids for retiree health insurance.
Councilman, what we
attempted to do is to sample the marketplace for retiree-specific medical insurance plans. It's broadly written, and so that we can get the best possible options out there so that we just have an alternative to look at. We have no idea what the pricing is going to be or the limitations of the products now with healthcare reform coming forward and the change in Medicare rolls. So we're going to just see, we're just sampling the market, very broad product line.
It's always been my understanding that there was a federal law that if you offered retiree health insurance, you had to provide the same benefits that you provide active employees.
Actually, that's state law in Oklahoma that says the municipality, if they offer retirees under the age of 65 non-Medicare insurance, then that same medical plan that's offered to the active employees should be offered to the retired persons under the age of 65.
So are you only getting bids on those over 65?
We're asking for both. Okay. Under and over, these would be alternative plan options that we could possibly offer to our populations, because we would still have the effect and force of the current state statute about offering the current medical plans to retirees.
So it has to be, I think what I'm hearing you say is we simply have to offer the same benefits, not necessarily the same company plan.
We do not have to offer the same company plan.
Right.
But I think that's the intention of the state law, that was the same medical plan.
All right.
Okay.
Excuse me, I have one. Does the state statute require us to offer Medicare or medical plans for the pre-65 retirees?
For the pre-65, yes.
It requires that.
If we offer our active employees medical insurance, the state law says that we have to offer that to retirees for the non-Medicare, under age 65.
Any other comments or questions on any item under the MFA? All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCMFA, convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. There are 3 items.
Move the items.
Comments or questions on the PPA?
Yeah, just a quick question on the first PPA, A1, 2, and 3 is related to repairing the roof at the Newark Arena at the fairgrounds. And I was curious as to how this was funded. And does the contract we have with the fairgrounds require the city to do the maintenance work out there?
I didn't hear your second question. You asked how it was funded, and the second part of your question was...
Does the contract we have with the fairgrounds, city and the fairgrounds, define who has to be responsible for the maintenance of the structures out there?
Right, they do the maintenance. They do the maintenance out there. Of course, the definition of maintenance between capital and maintenance is sometimes an issue. And the funds for this, I believe, came out of I need to check, but I think that, do you remember, Dennis?
No, I don't recall. I can get that information for you.
Well, there's no big, I was just curious as to, there's a source of funding out there, which is the hotel motel tax. And then there's some money that we've over the years put aside for the fairgrounds projects, the GO bond issues past couple of years. I was just curious as to how that's split out. This is roughly $500,000 project, so it's not a great big project, but I was just concerned about how the money's flowed.
We've gotten a lot of mileage out of that building, you know.
We have. It's been there for a long time.
Nearly 50 years old, I guess. We're well served.
I'll get back to you on the breakdown on the funds of that, Mr. Ryan.
All right, we're ready to vote the PPA. Comments or questions? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCPPA, convene as the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust. There are 3 items. Comments or questions on the EAT?
Your Honor, just a quick question. A and B are adjustments to the contract because of the Consumer's Price Index clause. And the first one is an adjustment in units cost by 1.68%. Using the same index, they got an adjustment on the second page of 1.8%. I was just curious as to why those 2 numbers were different. There's no hurry as far as an answer. We can get it later, but it just struck me as a little bit unusual. Using the same index, we got a different adjustment.
Because I think they're adjusted back to different months, but I'll get back to you on that. I'm pretty sure that's the answer, that they have there are different milestones that we're comparing those indexes back to.
All right, we're voting on the EAT. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket. All right, are there any individual considerations? Larry?
Item N.
All right, Larry, you want to get started with item N?
Yes, Your Honor. If I could indulge the council's permission for just a minute, I'd like Wendell Wissenham to come forward and give a vision of what is in store for Meadowbrook Park in the future. The Friends of Northwest 10th Street have adopted that park. They've already been successful in planting a number of trees out there and taking care of them. And this is another step forward in the revitalization of Northwest 10th Street from I-44 out to Lake Overholser. So, Wendell, if you would, just brief the council a little bit on what they can expect on Meadowbrook Park.
Yes, sir. Meadowbrook Park is a very small neighborhood park, and of course, as you all know, neighborhood parks can be very important, and this park's just about to become much more important to that neighborhood as we're going to be doing some significant program improvements there, as well as receiving a program improvement from the 10th Street Friends. We will be building a playground in that park, along with a contract that you'll see that allows us, should you approve today, to remove the old fire station that's no longer used by the city. We'll be putting in new walks and paths. We'll be repaving the existing parking lot so that citizens will have a place to park there when they take their children to use the new playground. The neighborhood and the 10th Street Friends have plans to install a nice pavilion on that park as well. So it'll soon go from what is now a fairly poorly equipped park to a beautifully equipped park. That'll be a brand new entrance for that neighborhood, and there'll be signage there. We're very pleased to be able to make this kind of progress in one of the neighborhood parks. It'll be beautiful and much loved, we're sure.
Thank you, Wendell. Thank you for all the support your staff has been to the Friends of Northwest 10th Street in getting us to this position.
Thank you, sir.
Approximately how much will this cost, Wendell?
I don't have the figure with me, but it'd be a standard neighborhood playground, which is installed something over $100,000. And the pavilion, as I mentioned, will be furnished by the 10th Street Friends. Thank you.
Pat, item D and J.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of quick questions for my own education. On D, this is a street improvement district, and part of the payment for of the contractor are some bonds, and it says that the bonds will be assessed at an interest rate of 7% until their maturity, and then after maturity they'll go to 9%. And typically maturity means the bonds are paid off. And I wondered how long the 9% provision would last after the maturity of the bonds. Was that going to be a permanent kind of thing? And does it become a lien against the property of those people who don't pay the bonds? There's no hurry as far as the answer, but I just was curious as to how that worked.
I'll get you an answer on that.
Thank you.
Okay. And item J, Pat?
Item J has to do with a passenger facility charge, and I was curious as to what that fee is and how long will it be extended. This particular thing extends the fee some.
Thank you. Good morning. Mark Cranenberg, Airports Director. Passenger facility charge is $4.50 per departing passenger at Will Rogers World Airport. We have passenger facility charges for capital improvement projects which are obligated through the year 2020. This addition of this checked baggage inspection system project will extend it one more year. So currently all of the passenger facility charges for capital projects will be paid off in 2021.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the consent docket? Looks like we're ready to go. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. On to the concurrence docket. We have one item. All right. Comments or questions on this one item from the PPA? All right. Cast your votes on the concurrence, and it passed unanimously. Moves us on to item 8. These are items that require a separate vote. The first is a zoning case in Ward 8 at 13803 North Council Road. It's currently a AA agricultural district, and it would become a new plan unit development. Pat?
Thank you, Your Honor. The applicant is represented and if there are any questions, we can address those questions. This was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission. There was a protest at the Planning Commission, but the developer has worked out the details. The PUD has been recommended to be amended, and Bob, has the applicant agreed with all these provisions?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so I think we're clear to go on this one. I would move approval.
All right. We have a motion and a second. We're voting on item 8A1. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8A2 is a zoning case in Ward 7. The address is 3136 North Coltrane Road. It's currently R1 single-family residential, and it would become a new plan unit development. Skip?
I haven't received any calls or any protests in reference to this, and I believe that at the Planning Commission it was passed without any protest, although I realize now that there's been several amendments to this. But was that an issue that was from a protest, or was this just...
No, they were just technical issues from staff, and everything's been changed, and it's ready to go.
Okay. You know, and so I recommend that we move this, but I do have one statement that I would like to comment I'd like to make about as it relates to the drainage of these new developments. We don't really get a whole lot of information as it relates to what the drainage system is, or what the terrain and the way the land is situated as it relates to the movement of water and drainage. And it just refers to our drainage policy under Chapter 16. I would like to ask that in the future, if we had a little bit more information in reference to the developer himself, or whoever the developer is, in showing how the water is going to be moved and how it's going to affect other properties in the area. I have been confronted with several issues of developments within the last 10 years, and it's amazing to see how some of these people's property is just being washed completely away. That I think that was all because there wasn't a real commitment of honoring the drainage control when the developer came in and developed in those areas. And I would just like to see if we could be a little bit more engaged with holding the developers accountable to showing exactly how the drainage will be in some of these newly developed areas.
We're ready to vote on item 8A2. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8A3 is a zoning case in Ward 2. The address is 10330 North Hudson. It's currently an R1 single-family residential district, and it would become a new simplified plan unit development. Sam?
Thank you, Mayor. Bob, I understand we have the easement, and I've heard from no one. I know the applicant's here. Is there any protest here today? Move for approval.
Cast your votes on item 8A3. Passes unanimously. Item 8B has already been deferred until April 26th. That's item 8B, deferred until April 26th.
And, Your Honor, just for point of clarification, it was deferred at the request of the Homeowners Association out there. They're still trying to come up with a compromise that will make everybody happy.
All right. Item 8C, we heard from Chief City last week, and we're going to just keep moving this item through the process. Just wanted to remind you of the issue. Have a motion to move it forward. Cast your votes on item 8C. Passes unanimously. Item 8D is an ordinance to be introduced, and the legal department's here to help explain this idea. Good morning.
Morning. Jill Jackson, Municipal Counselor's Office. This amendment involves moving an ordinance from Chapter 32 to Chapter 56. Chapter 56 was completely overhauled last year, and it became effective in September 2010. At that time, we thought all of the ordinances relating to taxis were consolidated into Chapter 56, but a few months ago, there was an issue with taxis parking at meters, and a few of the drivers were cited for violating an ordinance in Chapter 32, which requires taxis to park at taxi stands. This caused some confusion because it was in Chapter 32 and not in Chapter 56 with the rest of the taxi ordinances. And there's nothing in Chapter 56 that currently requires taxis to park at stands or prohibits them from parking at meters. So the issue was brought before Traffic Commission in January, and they decided that it would be best to keep the ordinance requiring them to park at stands, but to move it to Chapter 56 so it would be consolidated with the rest of the taxi ordinances.
Okay. So introduced today, I guess urge council members if over the next couple of weeks they have interest in this issue to look into it further, but I'll take a motion just to move this one forward for now. All right. Cast your votes on item 8D. Passed unanimously. And item 8E, again, legal department is here to explain this ordinance that's being introduced today. This is a public hearing.
Good morning. I'm Amy Douglas with the City Attorney's Office. This is another traffic matter. This is dealing with Chapter 58, and it's really a cleanup to clean up a Scrivener's error that occurred in Chapter 58 back in 2007 when we redid all of the ordinances. This deals with our record companies that provide services. They remove privately owned vehicles from city streets and from private property upon request from the property owner. And what happened back in 2007 was there was a recommendation from the Traffic Commission to delete the provisions requiring each tow driver to have a city permit. It was decided at that time that the state, through the Department of Public Safety, extensively regulated that area. There was no additional benefit having a city permit, so we tried to repeal all of those sections. There were 8 subsections within that, and due to a Scrivener's error, only 7 were repealed. So we're bringing this forward today. This will have absolutely no change in how Chapter 58 is administered or enforced.
All right. Comments or questions on this item that's being introduced? All right. Cast your votes. The resolution passes, or the ordinance passes to be introduced. It moves us on to item 8F, which is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Looks like we have one person that has signed up to speak. Is there anyone here wishing to speak under any item listed under 8F? All right. I'll ask Will Reeves to come forward. William?
Mr. Mayor, I'm down here to try to clarify something. I've got a demolition permit that I'm trying to get completed with all the utility companies and the DEQ, and I don't know, the council is set to demolish it, and I'm in favor of it 100%. Just kind of getting something straight, you know, in my own mind.
Right. But you'd rather do it yourself than have us do it.
Well, I'm going to do it myself.
Okay. Charles, is there any problem here? Does this sound good to you?
Yeah, we'll work with him. He would be allowed to do that.
Okay. We appreciate you coming down. Sounds like you're doing the right thing, and staff's in agreement.
Well, I appreciate the time. Thank you,
You're right.
sir.
Thanks for your patience this morning, William. All right. We have a motion and a second on the dilapidated structures. We've already got it. All right. Cast your votes on item 8F, and it passes unanimously. Item 8G is also a public hearing. It regards dilapidated structures in the HP Landmark District. We have one item that's on 19th Street in Ward 7. We have one person that has signed up to speak. Skip, you want to do it this one? Are you familiar with this property?
No, I'm not. But
okay. Spencer Bradley is here.
Bradley.
You want to come forward? Spencer Bradley had signed up to speak. Well, is not here now.
Charles, what's the issue with this?
I'm trying to see which property this would be. Looks like it's the one on 13th Street, 141. I'm sorry, the 109 Northwest 19th Street?
Yes, this is actually just a garage. It's got problems. The owner has expressed interest in repairing it, and I believe the mortgage company is actually in the process of foreclosing. I think they've filed recently.
Yeah, let me interject. I misspoke. Mr. Bradley has signed up to speak on a different item. So, yeah, I messed up there. So,
I apologize.
The item you're talking about, apparently, is there anyone here wishing to speak on this item, on item 8G, on the dilapidated structure?
Mayor,
okay.
For some reason now, I have a recall. I'm getting like Pete. But Ms. Martin, Debbie, she did mention this to me this morning, and I thought the comment was that they were asking for additional time. Have you had any communications with the owner?
The owner has been in our office. He expressed, to work with him on time to repair it, and if he'll start this process, we'll be more than happy to work with him.
So it's his desire to repair?
That's what he expressed to us.
When was the last time you had communications with him?
Last week.
Last week. So could we defer this for a reasonable period of time to see if the owner will bring forth some type of plan or action to your office of work on it?
That would be up to y'all, but yes, I mean, we can certainly proceed that way.
Okay.
2 weeks or 4 weeks, Councilman?
Let's do 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take that as a motion for a deferral for 4
Yes.
weeks. Do we have a
Yes.
second? Okay, we're voting on item 8G1. This is a deferral of 4 weeks. Pass your votes. Passed unanimously. And do we still need to vote on item 8G2 if we've deferred the item? Okay, so we'll move on to item 8H, which is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. We have a motion and a second. Spencer Bradley had signed up to speak. Spencer, would you come forward? Well, it looks like Spencer gave up on us this morning. The property he was wishing to talk about was 141 Northeast 13th Street, which is an apartment building in Ward 7. Skip, do you have a preference on how we deal with Mr. Bradley? He had signed up to speak, now is not here, and his item is listed. We could certainly leave it on here, and he'd have time to work with staff going forward.
Is this not the wall clerk?
Well,
building?
I don't know.
This is wall clerk building.
Oh, it sure is. There it is.
Yes. He's met with us. His plans are to secure it.
Okay. All right.
Well, we have a motion and a second. We ready to go on item 8H? All right. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. On item 8I, this is a resolution adopting the Records Retention Manual, and our clerk, Frances Kersey, is going to give us more information.
Okay, Mayor and Council, this is actually an update of the 2004 Records Retention Manual that you adopted. And during the past year, the Deputy Municipal Counselor and I have met with departments and in some cases division to identify documents that needed to be included and documents that needed to be deleted. Just as an example of some new documents that are in the manual are the closed-circuit TV recordings, surveys, informal quotes, the I-9 form, leading for result reports, vendor registration forms, consultant review reports, and electronic timekeeping and personnel records. We reviewed the retention time and any citation, any law or policy that required the document to be maintained for a certain period of time and updated those dates. We identified what department the record would be located in, so this could help citizens locate the documents. If any document was not required to be retained for a certain period of time by policy or law, the municipal counselor's office and the department identified a certain time period for it to be maintained.
Any comments or questions for Frances on this item? All right, sounds like we're ready to go. We have a motion and a second on item 8I. All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 8J is an item that Chief City is prepared to speak about if anybody has any questions. Chief, are we ready to go on this as far as you're concerned?
Yes. Simply put, it adds in our policies and procedures manual that officers during extra duty employment have to follow the chief's directive. It's been an oversight over the last several years since we've gone to a formalized directive process from the chief's office. They have to follow those directives during extra employment, and that's all it is to add that to that policy.
Chief, I have one very, very tiny typo in the second whereas. It just says this clarification, give reference, and I think it needs to be gives reference or makes reference.
Okay.
We just need to
Thank you.
throw an S in there, sorry.
Okay.
All right, looks like we're ready to go. We're voting on item 8J. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8K deals with the MAPS 3 streetcar route recommendation. This is obviously a very important decision and one that has a myriad of steps. If there's probably 100 steps in the process of locating and routing this streetcar, today's a pretty important one.
We can't be accused of not having process. Amongst the processes we have are two processes on this. One is an alternative analysis that's being done, which the mayor chairs, and the other is a MAPS 3 subcommittee on not exactly the same responsibilities, but very, very similar. And Eric is here to give us an update and to actually explain the route to be accepted today.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The two items that you have before you today come out of a couple of months of work of the MAPS 3 subcommittee. Obviously, their initial charge with a lot of the Project 180 work that was occurring downtown was to come up with certain findings, to come up with certain alignments that, again, as City Manager Jim Couch mentioned, had some agreement with the alternative analysis process that's currently underway, making sure that a lot of those considerations were taken into account as they came up with the recommendation. So you have two drawings in front of you. The first is a partial route recommendation. It's one that you'll find that has a blue looped route on it. It extends on up to 13th Street, and I think one of the things that you'll note on this drawing is that it generally connects Midtown to Bricktown, and this was some of the outcomes that came from a series of those subcommittee meetings as they started talking about a downtown circulator, a Robinson Broadway couplet that you'll see is the primary north-south routes. And this represents about 4 miles of the 5 to 6 mile route as a part of the MAPS 3 budget. And so we've received this. This has been to the subcommittee. They have moved it from subcommittee to the advisory board. The advisory board has also received this, and so it's on your agenda today, not necessarily as an approval item, but as a receipt so that you could acknowledge the work that's been performed by them to date. What staff has done with this is we have coordinated with the Project 180 work teams. We have identified a couple of overlapping areas. Obviously, with this recommended partial route, we're able to overlay the Project 180 work that he is going to bid later this summer. We're also able to identify work that's underway and future work. We've been able to work on some coordination issues. Obviously, one of the goals is to take advantage of any utility relocations now so that if this route is approved in the future, it's one that we won't have to relocate utilities twice. So those core areas that are coming up are in this core of downtown area along the Robinson and Sheridan Avenues. There is some overlapping areas there with Project 180 that have already been addressed. But coming from the subcommittee again and coming from the advisory board, this is a route recommendation. They understand that there is additional work to undergo with this. We have a consultant that's pending that we would like to hire as early as this summer to start some of the engineering analysis. This simply is just a two-dimensional step, putting together a preferred alignment that still has a lot of engineering, surveying in the field, coordination issues, making sure that the route makes a lot more sense when we start talking about other things like economic development potential, but at least as a starting point. As we mentioned, work with the alternatives analysis. There are certain alignments that you'll find on this that are consistent with alternatives analysis as well, and so we are working very closely with that process to ensure that the decisions that are being made as we move forward are in alignment so that we can make sure that we're securing future federal funding opportunities. I think Rick Kane updated last week, our director of COPTA. He is in Fort Worth this week, and they are meeting actively with FTA. They're very well aware of our process. They did have a process meeting in the last couple of days, making sure that they were aware of what the work was going on in Oklahoma City, and so there's generally good response from that, and we're expecting good things this summer with the alternatives analysis, anticipating to wrap up then. So these are coordinated efforts, and again, today we're asking for your receipt of these drawings, which just gives us some confidence in moving forward that they're on the right track.
Right. And so just so everybody's clear, you know, with Project 180 and some overlapping issues going on with their downtown streets, it does make sense for the council to at least approve the direction that the subcommittee is going in the Alternative Analysis Committee, and with the opportunity to perhaps save some money in utility movements and some other things that can be streamlined. So that's the point of this, and we have a handful of citizens who are involved in the process, I suspect, and they have a chance. So why don't we hear from them, and then if there's additional questions for Eric, we'll proceed down that road. Jill Adler.
My name is Jill Adler. My address is 21 Northeast 3rd Street. I'm a member of the MAP Streetcar Subcommittee, and I just wanted to talk today about kind of where we've gone as a committee. Actually, Councilman Walters brought me back into time, and I realized that it's been over 30 years since I moved to Oklahoma City. I was sitting in Denver waiting for a phone call from my husband to tell me what the results of an interview that he had here were. And he called me and he said, Oklahoma City is an interesting place. He said, I love the program. He said, but to be honest with you, the city's kind of a dump. And he said, we have to live here 2 years. Will you come? And I said, sure, what's 2 years? I got here, and actually I found what he said was true. It was kind of a shock to me that a city the size of Oklahoma City would be in the condition it was downtown. But MAPS intervened, and then I flashed forward to 10 years ago. I was driving down I-40 with my son, and really at that time I didn't come downtown that much, but we were driving down I-40 and we saw the then Ford Center under construction. I looked over at it. He was kind of a sports whiz. He knew everything about every sport you can imagine, and I said, look at that. We're building an arena. Do you think there's any chance we could get an NBA team? And he said, no way. And I said, oh, shucks. I said, that'd be really something I could get excited about, but still it's cool we're building an arena. Flash forward to 5 years ago, I was driving down to a Hornets game. I got off on 6th Street, and as I was driving by, I thought, there's construction going on in Deep Deuce. Kind of detoured by, and I saw these interesting places going up. And 2 years later, I bought one. So I'm now living downtown. I'm going to NBA games at the Oklahoma City Arena. And flash forward, last night I had dinner with that same son. He was 11, he's now 21. And we went to dinner in Midtown. And as we drove to Midtown, I said, in a few years, we may be able to get on the streetcar and actually ride over to Midtown to have dinner. We don't even have to drive. And so that gave us an opportunity to really sit down and kind of focus on how incredibly far Oklahoma City has come in his lifetime. And I really have to say, I so admire the leadership in this city. I so admire what the work the city council has done. I so admire what our citizens have done to move the city in such an incredibly short period of time from what my husband called a dump to what I consider a burgeoning, prosperous, exciting city in which to live. And I think I see the streetcar as another one of those really exciting projects, similar to the arena, similar to the ballpark, similar to what's happened in the river. I think that regardless of how you feel about use of fossil fuels and things like that, one of the things that Oklahoma City needs to do to move forward is to get involved in more mass transit. And I really see the streetcar as just the beginning, just the start. It's kind of our way of turning the city on to mass transit. And that's something that other cities are doing, and I think that's a way we need to go. I don't want anybody to think that the streetcar is in any way kind of the be-all and end-all. I really see it as kind of the spur to greater things, just like the arena was spur to greater things. So I'm hopeful that after we get this route going and get the streetcar going, that our focus can move on to even a more extensive and usable system for the entire city. I just wanted to say that our committee has worked incredibly hard. We've met twice a month as opposed to once a month. I've seen a lot of consensus on the committee in terms of looking at routes, and we've looked at it from a variety of different directions. We've looked at connectability to other parts of the city. We've looked at transit-oriented development. We've looked at connecting lots and lots of different older and newer proposed MAPS proposals, and I just want everybody on the council to understand that we put a lot of thought into this, and we really care very deeply about it, and we think this is going to be a great thing for Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Jill, thank you for your service on that committee.
Mayor, I'd like to clarify. I think the parallel she was drawing was my reference to how time flies, not that Oklahoma City was a dump, and I wanted to make sure that was clarified, make sure that there's no mistake about that.
Richard McCowan. Okay. Jeff Bezdek.
Jeff Bezdek, 605 Northwest 4th. I serve on the MAPS Transit Subcommittee and also the Alternatives Analysis Committee and Regional Transit Dialogue. Mayor Richard did ask me to mention that, as part of the project that they're undertaking, his company in the Deep Deuce area, one thing that they are intending on doing is bringing a grocery store into the downtown area. And he was quite delighted to see in some of the master plans that I have here that I'm going to reference that is something that we have weighed very heavily in terms of connecting through the Deep Deuce area and health sciences in the future. And being able to connect greater downtown to grocery services is something that I think will resonate in the community broadly. What I wanted to address was we were challenged by Councilman White and Councilman Bowman to look beyond downtown and see how the MAPS streetcar system can be the beginning to a real transit system that reaches outside of the downtown area. And that conversation arose from Rick Kane bringing up the alternatives analysis maps, which showed something of an inverted loop in the more of the core downtown area from around 8th Street all the way down to Sheridan. The MAP Streetcar Committee took those comments to heart. Part of the problem that we've had is, we've put a public goal of 5 to 6 miles at $20 million a mile, but we keep having a rhetorical conversation because we really don't know for sure if we can even get more than that, because we can't go into engineering to determine what those real costs are until we finalize a route and give a route. And then, of course, as Eric mentioned, the other challenge that we've had with this project is Project 180. Most of the members felt that it would be irresponsible for us to petition or request that the Project 180 process be slowed down for the streetcar. So instead, we decided as a group to start meeting twice a month, and we were actually meeting even more than that in smaller groups to try to come up with the route before you today as to inform the Project 180 process. It's important to note that we stopped short of the convention center locations that have been identified by the Convention Center Subcommittee. We stopped short of getting to the 3 locations that will be rounded out this month for the transit hub, the intermodal hub. As soon as we know where the convention center is going to go, we'll be coming back to you with what I would, I guess, call a Phase 1B, which is how to connect the loop that's before you today to the convention center, and the front door and the back door, whatever the consultants suggest and we agree with in terms of the intermodal hub location. And that committee seems to be gravitating towards the Santa Fe facility, Zio's parking lots on the Bricktown side. One of the other challenges that was put forth is how do we connect the MAP streetcar system outside of downtown? And I can honestly say, if you added up the time that people have spent trying to answer that question, as volunteers we put several thousand hours. And what I printed off today was the 3 master plans that originated as homework assignments from our subcommittee. But interestingly enough, they are also somewhat ratified by the AA process, in which Jacobs Engineering, the professional consultants, have a very similar master plan, which has many of the same corridors and routes that we do. But the thing that you see emerge from these various plans is the spine, as we call it, that is before you today. But we feel that we've stretched the core route that came out of the AA originally further into the Midtown area and established a setup to be able to go to the Plaza District, the 23rd and Classen area, the Paseo area, the Capitol, this spine will allow for easy access to reach out into those areas. And it's my hope that if the pricing comes in with a lower price tag as a result of our judicious behavior with Project 180 and the timing that ADG has promoted in terms of where they think the streetcar ought to be based on cost of materials and so forth, it's my hope that in a Phase 1C we'll actually be able to reach out into those areas, and if not, we at least have the setup to apply for these federal funds and use those federal funds to reach out into some of these other areas. But I have the 3 master plans, and I believe John Mobley is here with St. Anthony's. One big concern for us in terms of the Midtown portion was that St. Anthony's felt that they were adequately connected to the MAP streetcar system, and we identified their preferred stop location, which is on the front of these packets. We identified and met with neighborhoods outside of the downtown area. I personally met with the Western Avenue District Association. We looked out in terms of a 30-year sort of discussion, and quite frankly, the map would even be bigger if the printer would allow it. Francis, I gave you all of those, so if I could have one at the end so I know what I'm talking about, it would be helpful.
So what you're showing us, Jeff, are basically some potential extensions of the MAPS 3 streetcar system beyond the MAPS 3 funding.
That is correct. You know, we don't know how much money will be left over, again, when we go into engineering and start getting bids back. Certainly, council has the ability to modify the route as you see fit. But I guess the reason why I'm giving these to you is this image of this spine keeps reappearing in all these various grand master plans. It keeps reappearing. And one thing that we did in terms of trying to come up with this greater concept is identify connections to commuter rail, identify connections to existing bus lines, identify flexibility in terms of system operation, and met with Jacobs Engineering independently, individually, to run things by them. But again, we were challenged by Councilman Pete White and Sam Bowman to try to identify how this system would fit into this larger context. And I feel, and I think the committee unanimously feels that we have done so.
Right.
In extending the streetcar system into the Midtown area in the first phase, if you want to call it that, I also have a sheet that I'll leave with you. It identifies all of the businesses, institutions, churches, housing, retail, and major employers that were not part of the original core route that are above 6th Street that will be affected by MAP streetcar funding. One other thing, the sisters at Villa Teresa have a letter that they've submitted that they'd like me to hand off to you, in which they express their full support, and they see it as a great opportunity to use a streetcar system to collect children and their parents and bring them to the school, and also use the streetcar system to take them on field trips to the new MAPS Park, the Museum of Art, and all the other facilities that now it's quite difficult for them to put together because of their lack of access to a school bus.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Jeff? Jeff, I assume you'll stick around if there may be a question
I will.
before we're through with the conversation. So, but thanks for your service to all of the committees and for being one of many champions for public transit. We
Thank you. Let me hand these off to you.
All right. That's Steve Mason to come forward.
Thank you, Mayor.
Morning.
My name is Steve Mason. I serve on the MAPS Streetcar Committee. I'm also the president of Oklahoma City Community Foundation, which is in this route, which is a $590 million bank for our community's nonprofits at 10th and Broadway. I'm also the president of Cardinal Engineering, and I'm also remodeling 12 buildings at 9th and Broadway. A streetcar is important for us to be a world-class city. You know, I recommend this route. It's important that when the route opens, it has strong ridership. And this Bricktown to Midtown route will have the ridership it needs. As Jeff mentioned, we've also reserved mileage for wherever the convention center is ultimately located, which will work. It's also important as we go forward, Eric spoke about the opportunity for federal funds to leverage this MAPS money. That's important to continue. So this is a great route. Council McAtee and I attended a presentation by Robbie Kinzel last Thursday, and she spoke about when our downtown government's invested, the return on investment with private sector money is 7 to 70 to 1. It was a great presentation. And I think what Robbie spoke about is the MAPS is succeeding, and it's encouraging us to invest in our downtown. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Josiah Daniel. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Josiah Daniel. I live at 700 Northwest 42nd Street. First wanted to just thank Councilman Bowman for his service to Ward 2 in the spirited runoff that is now underway. One thing that everybody can agree on is how wonderful the councilman's been and how much we appreciate his service. As a citizen watching the process thus far, I'm not engaged on any of the committees, but I do enjoy watching it closely and keeping in touch with it. I just want to voice my support for the thoughtful work that so many staff and citizens have put in thus far. I think it is true to say that many of the best and brightest sort of civic minds of all ages in the city are engaged in this process to formulate the best kind of reinvigoration of a transit system in the city, and I think that's really exciting, and I think it deserves council support. Obviously, I live in the Crown Heights neighborhood, outside the range of the immediate streetcar plan. Yet myself and many of my neighbors are to say that we're supportive is an understatement. This is we understand this is just a first step. That is a crucial first step. It's a necessary first step to put a system in place so that once we get somewhere eventually, we have a place to go. I grew up in Dallas and saw the immense transformation that the DART light rail system made to my hometown. I've moved here, my wife grew up here, and I feel like that is a model that we can learn from to some degree. And if you look at what they have in Dallas, downtown, they have a core system akin to what we're talking about here. And without that core system, it probably wouldn't work as well. And I think that Dallas is another good example of once you engage in a starter system, support will only grow. If you look at the congressional support, for instance, in Dallas, when it first started, many of the very conservative Republicans, Sam Johnson, Pete Sessions, they were very skeptical at first, but after the first stage went in, they not only voiced their support, but signed their signatures for funding as well. And I think that should be kept in mind. One last comment. I travel a lot for work, and as I talk to young people around the nation, transit is a key component of the decision-making process and where people want to live today. The type of people that we want to attract to our city, or the type of people that we want to attract back to our city who grew up here. And so I know that the council is considering that, and I just urge you to keep that in the front of your minds when engaging in these discussions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Josiah. All right, comments or questions from council? We've heard from a lot of different people on the MAPS 3 oversight, and certainly Eric is here if they have any questions. I think one of the important things to remember here is what this is, and I would best phrase it as it's a current intention. It's very early in the process, but we do have a lot of overlapping projects, and it's nice for staff to have some direction, even though the council is not committing itself to any specific route at this time. This shows some best faith efforts from a very broad group of transit enthusiasts and people willing to give their time toward this project. Anyone make a comment? Yeah, Pete, and then Sam, and then Pat.
I appreciate the attention that's been paid to the comments that I had made and Sam had made earlier with regard to extension of the vision beyond just a downtown process. I think from my standpoint, I try to keep in mind who's going to pay for this system. And it's obvious to me that a downtown system is not going to be paid for by people that are downtown. It's going to be paid for where all the development, where all the growth of this city is on the edges. Those are the people that pay the sales tax. Those are the people that pay this tax that's building this system. And so I'm very much committed to making sure it reaches as far as it possibly can. I would reiterate that I still have a disappointment that we don't look seriously enough at what I consider to be a transit system that serves the entire community. I don't want that to cover my appreciation for the fact that this committee has looked at expanding the downtown system beyond just the immediate downtown. But I don't want anybody to think that my acquiescence to this shows a change of heart with regard to where the people that are paying for this live and how far they're going to have to drive or walk, because we don't have a bus system that'll get them there, how far they're going to have to walk or drive to get on this system. So I think we must constantly be looking at how we improve our system, that the entire system, not just the downtown system. I mean, the people that live on the periphery of this city, and that's shown by the census, when we start to talk about where the people live in this city, where the taxpayers live, you're going to see that in the downtown area, despite all of our efforts, those areas are less populated today than they were 10 years ago. The growth is on the edge. It's in the far northwest. It's in the far southwest. It's in my area. That's where the growth is coming. And those are the people that pay the tax that pays for this. I just think we have to continue to be cognizant of who's paying for it, and the fact that this system's got to reach some of those people that actually are going to build it. And I still don't know how we're going to operate it, but I am pleased that we've moved in a direction that I hopefully pushed that way a couple of 3 months ago.
All right, Sam.
Mayor, several questions. With regard to Pete's point about extending this even basic system into some more neighborhood ridership, I'd like to, if we could just clarify the question you, I think, asked of Eric, or maybe it was Jeff, that the extended alternative routes, and they're not, I understand, we are here to look at the spine today, a basic approximate 4-mile north-south spine that gets to Midtown. I understand that. But the extension to neighborhoods, there are 4 options right now. There may be more before this process is over. To just clarify your question, the MAPS funds provided we're within reasonable budget per mile is 4-mile spine, and will allow us with current MAPS 3, not future funding, to at least get a 2-mile extension in some direction, northwest, northeast. And I'd just like to get that clarified first. We're not here to discuss those alternatives, understand that, but I want, like people understand, we can get further than the spine unless things are just engineering-wise, we find we're completely out of the ballpark.
And I think that's the response, is that we do project that there's up to 2 additional miles, but it's subject to available funds and how far we can really get. I think one of the things that Mike Mize presented last week is we see some challenges on not just the streetcar, but several of the upcoming projects with some of the increasing construction prices that are already becoming evident. Steel prices and raw material prices seem to be creeping, and so that's going to have an impact on this project. But the assertion that we can make is that we're going to stretch the dollars literally as far as they can go. And if that means it's 2 miles or more or less, I mean, that is our goal, yes.
Okay.
And we're also looking at leveraging the MAPS 3 dollars with federal dollars.
I want to ask about that, too.
To go as far as possible. And I think Eric referenced earlier in his presentation that Rick Kane was down last week in Dallas and had some meetings. And you know, there's no promises, but they're certainly very willing to receive our project, and I think look favorable.
All right, no promises, Jim. But Eric, I'd like to ask, with regard to those meetings, with the federal money that might be available to extend this route or any routes, understanding that the first application deadline or process deadline is September, are we going, not successful, are we going to be able, with the completion, to complete the alternative analysis that has to be done, understand, before application is made, and be able to at least make application for this first September deadline?
My understanding from a report that we received from Rick yesterday is the answer is yes, that they are actively meeting with the FTA on a regular basis, making sure that FTA is aware of what we're doing here in Oklahoma City, that we are planning to hopefully leverage some of the MAPS 3 funds to apply for future federal funding. And that is their goal, is to have an application meeting that deadline.
I think that is nothing but good news. Rick wasn't certain as to whether our MAPS funds, sales tax funds, could be used for match, and I understand from these meetings that not necessarily match, but clearly that this will give Oklahoma City some priority on the grading scale for this competition. Highly competitive, but who else would be able, what other city, as at this point in time, at this stage, could bring this kind of MAPS money forward? So I'm glad to hear that. Just want to ask something more about the basic spine route. Jeff mentioned that there's going to be some little tweaking because of the convention center and the hub site. But it seems to me like even with the tweaking, it won't alter this 4-mile spine significantly. However, last week, for the first time, I heard that this spine is going to have to embrace some kind of maintenance barn facility. And maybe I shouldn't be asked that. Maybe I ought to know this, being on the hub study committee. But wouldn't the hub site itself, provided it's more than Santa Fe Station and it has the additional land, be the logical thought for any kind of online facilities barn? I'm hoping we're not going to have to run a separate line out somewhere to connect to a barn.
Councilman, it could. And I think that's the answer, is it could. It needs to be somewhere to a close proximity of the line. And I think we still don't know the answer to that, whether that's kind of prime real estate down there, and if you want to put that maintenance facility there, or maybe somewhere else where there's more open areas and less congestion to do that. I think we'll look at those options and what's available out there. But you could, but we're going to also just look at some other options.
Okay.
Pat.
Your Honor, thank you. First of all, I want to compliment the subcommittee on the hard work they did. I think it's an extraordinarily difficult decision, difficult project to work on, and they did a great job. I do have a little concern, is that when we accept this recommendation, this becomes, in the public's view anyway, the route. And I think we really need to be careful that we have a lot of cautionary wording in this, that this is a good first start as a selection for a route. But as Sam pointed out, there are some things that will impact our final decision. The convention center, the transportation hub, the maintenance facility. And so I do think as we go forward, we need to make sure people understand this is the result of a lot of hard work, makes a lot of sense, it's consistent with what we've talked about before. However, there are some modifications that may be made to this that may affect the use of this spine, and I think we need to make that very clear to the public. our acceptance of this recommendation is conditional on a lot of things going forward, and I think that's important. Thank you.
Thanks. Meg?
You know, if I could just to follow on one of Sam's comments, and I think this is correct, and Eric, you can probably expand on this, but it's my understanding that with regard to the federal match, because the dollars are already in hand, and because the, say, $75 million max request that we would make would represent less than 50% of the total project, that elevates us to the highest level of consideration for federal funding match.
I think at least from our perspective, having the funding in hand and the things that you've mentioned, definitely we believe that, but that is an ongoing conversation with FTA as they go through that decision-making process. Rick has mentioned also that there's a lot of applicants. The applicant pool is quite large, and we're one of those, and it's a competitive process, but we are doing absolutely everything, and Rick is doing absolutely everything to ensure that those meetings with FTA are continuing to proceed and that they're expecting our submittal on that.
And it is competitive, but I understand there are very few people that have those two ingredients
that is
already
correct.
in place, which sounds like it would move our application further to the top of the list, which is
We
what we're
believe
all
that.
hopeful about. Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Skip?
Eric, the federal match, as I understood last week, that it wasn't a lot of money. So are we talking about a continuation of requests for federal funds in order to continue with as far as the expense of the maintenance or any increase of the mileage?
I think there's actually two parts to the federal funds. I think last week there was mentioned that Fort Worth had returned some funds to the program, and I think that's probably a smaller portion than what might be available on a larger percentage. So Fort Worth had some funding approved, and that was returned, and so that's going back into a process to have it redistributed. I believe the application that we're getting ready to submit for is the next cycle of applications and funding that's available. I don't think the determination has been made from the federal standpoint of how much that money is. That's something that's ongoing. It's going to be a part of the next year federal fiscal budget. And so some of that, we don't know how much is really there, but there are some established program guidelines that talk about different levels of funding, and the one that Meg has just mentioned is one that's a $75 million small starts program. And that's the one that we're targeting as a part of our alternatives analysis and what we're hoping to leverage the MAPS 3 funds and be successful in getting. But again, there's been no determinations made, and it's going to be an ongoing series of meetings over the summer. It's something that we're working towards that application to make, and it's in that September time frame where we're going to actually be finishing that alternatives analysis and allowing us to submit and hopefully be successful.
So one of the applications is for $75 million.
There is a discussion that that's the grant that we are seeking, yes.
Is there another one?
I think that there are some other opportunities that were discussed last week that I just don't have a response to offer, and this would be the ones, say, for the Fort Worth funds that were returned on a previous cycle, that those monies are now available, and I just don't have any indication of what I don't know what happens to those.
I don't think it's clear from the federal government what's going to happen with those, whether they're going to put it back, have a new reallocation of that, or whether that goes into the bigger pot, or how that's going to work out yet.
Or if it still be open.
Right.
The federal government.
Yeah.
That's kind of a day-by-day deal, too, isn't it?
Anybody else? Larry?
I appreciate what the committee did. I got to sit in on a couple of the meetings, and it was very, very thorough and very thought-provoking. I think one thing that needs to be kept in mind, and it's been reiterated a number of times, this is only the cornerstone or the spine of a mass transit system that is being envisioned for the Oklahoma City metropolitan area for the next, and Jeff threw out the term, so I'll just use it, 30 years if you would, probably even longer than that. And I think we need to keep our expectations balanced, because this is only the beginning to try to get things started. And I don't want to be corny, but a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And this is only one small step right here, the very important step. We need to do this correctly. We need to do it right, and it needs to support the expansion of mass transit throughout the Oklahoma City area. And if folks in southwest Oklahoma City out by Yukon and Mustang expect to see a modern streetcar out there in the next 10 years, folks, I'm sorry, that's never part of the plan. Right, Jeff? This is just the beginning, and this alternative analysis study, the fixed guideway study, are all intended to build on this, to expand it out so that we would have a mass transit system, so that the gentleman back here who moved from Dallas and talking about DART, 20 years from now, who knows what it'll be. But this is only the beginning, and we need to keep that expectation in mind, I believe.
Okay. Well put. Anybody else?
Could I just, at my last meeting, Eric, I want to thank you again publicly for your ability to just grasp the big picture. There's nobody in this city with regards to these projects that has the grasp, and I feel the integrity. And that's just not from me, from my fellow members on the MAPS Advisory Committee as well, and citizens well, that reassurance that we have, the public has, that there is somebody that has more than the streetcar system, more than the 180, but has the grasp of the big pictures, all things fit together, and appreciate you and commend you for all of us. And Jeff, for his constant vigilance. My God, Jeff, we need you. Stay with us.
Council ready to vote on the receiving of the MAPS 3 recommendations? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from anyone in the room? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Thank everyone for their work. Moves us to item 8L. This is a resolution that would approve a salary continuation. Cast your votes on 8L. Passed unanimously. Item 8M is a request to hire an expert for a legal issue we're working on. Comments or questions on 8M? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8N is claims recommended for denial. We have one person that has signed up to speak. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any item listed under 8N? These are claims recommended for denial. All right, Tamer? Tamar? Having trouble getting people to stick with us today. They have great intentions of speaking, and I think our council meetings may be dragging on past their patience level. He was here to speak on item N1C, which is in Ward 2. Sam, would you want to defer this item because this gentleman had come in and not that you're going to be around to hear it on a distant day.
That'd be an easy one to do.
I just feel that the person came down and signed up to speak on a claim recommended for denial and then had to leave for whatever reason.
I think we better do 2 weeks, though.
Okay, why don't we do 2 weeks?
Okay, we can't do 2 weeks.
We can't do 2.
3.
Or 3 weeks.
3 weeks? All right. We have a motion and a second, and that would be to defer item N1C for 3 weeks. Cast your votes on that deferral, and it passed unanimously. Then, with no one else signed up to speak, we'll vote to deny the claims on item 8N, 1A, and B. How about a motion there? Cast your votes, and those claims are denied. It moves us on to item 9, which is items from council. Pat, you want to get us started today?
No, thank you, Your Honor. I mean, I have nothing to say.
Okay. Skip?
Again, we're going to miss Sam and Brian, and I wish you both the best in your new endeavors in life. And Sam, we know what yours is going to be. Of course, Brian, with your new business, we congratulate you and wish you the best, you and your family. Thank you.
All right. Meg?
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, I want to remind, microphone. I just wanted to remind our young high school juniors and seniors that the applications for the Youth Council are due on April the 8th here in our office. This is available. This is a fabulous program. It's available, as I said, for juniors and seniors. Our students are required to have a 3.0 grade point average, and they need to provide their transcript. They must live in one of the 8 wards in the city of Oklahoma City. This is a program that's funded by the mayor and the city council, and I think we've seen just terrific benefits from the program. We've had great young people participate and graduate from our program and choose to continue to make Oklahoma City their home, which is one of our biggest goals. So you can go to the city website and find that application, or you can also go to the website of Youth Leadership Exchange. Both of those sites have the application on, and again, they're due on April the 8th.
All right, Brian?
Well, I'd like to just say thank you to everybody for the very, very kind, gracious words. I will be around in my new life, in and out. A couple of things. First of all, last weekend, we had the opportunity to spend our entire weekend at South Lakes. They had the first annual South Lakes soccer tournament out there. And when I say all weekend, I mean all weekend. My family participated in 9 soccer games over 2 days. My son and my daughter, who were both here, my son actually won his division in that tournament. My daughter took second against a very good team, and so I'm very proud of them. But the tournament itself went off very, very well. They did a great job out there, and I think it'll be one of those tournaments in the future that will be known, at least in the region, as something that other teams need to come to. Second thing is, I caught a story on the news last night that caused me to think. Some of these details, because I caught it in passing, maybe a little bit fuzzy, but I believe it was on NBC. They did a profile of, I believe it was the Bruins hockey team, and they have a program that after those professional events, there's a lot of food that goes to waste, and they've implemented a program that they donate to local shelters. And I don't know if we do that here or not, but that might be something that we need to look into, especially with the close proximity of the shelter to the facility. But they were talking, a couple 100 pounds of food which was just going to waste, and they package it up and the next morning deliver it over and let them feed those people with it. Jim, did...
Councilman Sellier asked about that just a couple of weeks ago, and so we're looking into that. There are some issues associated with it, I do know, but we're looking into that issue.
Well, it seemed to be, from what I saw last night, a very big success there, so I can't help it. And I am going to preempt Dennis just a bit on his presentation, but I do want to say the presentation on the Southwestern Project, that in the last 4 years, although it was at my initiation, obviously the citizens are putting over a lot of tax money to get the Southwestern Project done. That was very, very much in need. And so I do appreciate the council in the last 4 years helping with that and getting that done. But it'll be something that hopefully next year or so will open up and be a great asset to South Oklahoma City.
Okay. Pete? All right, Larry?
Yes, I'd like to, just a couple of things right quick. I'd like to thank Phil Sipe and Chief Bryant for the very warm hospitality at their Fireman's Award Banquet last Saturday night. It was a great experience, and enjoyed hearing the accomplishments of the different firemen, and also seeing the video. And then I'd like to also pass on, as we had Terry Trashosaurus here a couple of weeks ago on the Oklahoma City Beautiful Cleanup, and the Friends of Northwest 10th Street took that to heart. They had their cleanup day last Thursday. They had so many people participate that Amy Rollins from the Castle Falls restaurant, who had committed to provide everybody with free bratwurst and hot dogs after the cleanup, had to scurry around because they had probably triple the crowd that they thought. There were people from churches on Northwest 10th Street, from businesses along Northwest 10th, from neighborhoods, and they cleaned up through a sweep, again, from I-44 all the way out to Lake Overholser. So my hat's off to them and their efforts. Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet. Sam?
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot to recognize earlier 2 lovely ladies that got my tie knotted this morning and escorted me down to City Hall, Jane Wheeler, and my daughter from Atlanta, April Bowman. Thank you both for being with me. And as Brian said, kind words from all of you. I will miss you on this horseshoe.
We'll miss you too. Gary?
Just an echo what Larry said about the firefighters awards banquet. It was a good event, and I congratulate all the people that won the awards. And we'll miss you too, Sam. We will.
All right. City manager reports.
Thank you. Councilman Walters did ask for an update on the Southwestern Project, and Dennis Clowers is here this morning to provide such a report.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. The brief presentation that you'll hear this morning hopefully will give you a history of this project, the 3-mile project on Western from 179th up to 134th. give you the current status where we are right now and then what we expect going forward. I think what you'll hear during the presentation is that although there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of engineering work, and a lot of meetings and so forth about this project over many years, the funding to construct the project really hasn't been there until recently. In the 1989 general obligation bond authorization included $1 million for right-of-way acquisition, for utility relocation, and for engineering work on this project. At that time, it was still on the state highway system, and the intent was that ODOT would fund the construction of the project. A few parcels of right-of-way were acquired, engineering plan preparation began, but at that time, ODOT had no funds to put toward the project for construction. That really continued for about 7 years until 1996. In 1996, ODOT indicated that they may have funding for the project. So we instructed the engineering firm to change the plans to meet current ODOT standards and convert to metric units, which is the way ODOT was preparing their plans at the time. From 1997 to 2006, it really went back into a state of dormancy because there was no funding identified by ODOT to construct the project. The 2007 general obligation bond authorization included $7 million for additional right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation, and to provide some construction funds. The intent was that the construction funds would be matching funds for possible federal funds to be acquired for the project. In 2008, the engineer was authorized to modify the plans to meet current ODOT and FHWA standards and specs. We anticipated trying to get construction funds through ACOG, through the Federal Surface Transportation Fund for urban areas. Also at that time, we were in plan preparation for a project to redo the interchange at I-40 and Morgan Road. There were some bond funds that the city had put toward engineering and right-of-way and utility relocation for that project, but the construction estimate on that project increased drastically. We met with ODOT, and ODOT agreed to foot the bill for the additional roughly $5 million it was going to cost to build that interchange if Oklahoma City would take over the complete funding of Western. We agreed to do that. STP funding through ACOG was still possible at this time, and also that year ODOT took a Western off the state highway system. We authorized the engineer to change the plans and specs again to meet current Oklahoma City standards in anticipation of accelerating the project using local funds only. Late last year, we made an application to ACOG again to provide federal STP funds for all or a portion of the project. The policy committee met and approved the federal funds for fiscal year 2012 for the 2 miles from 134th down to 164th. Earlier this year, we submitted right-of-way documents to ODOT for clearance approval, and this brings us to the current status. 100% of the right-of-way has been acquired. There are 11 utility companies involved, and we've received relocation plans from all of them. The utilities will be relocated by the fall of 2011. And the construction plans are basically 95% complete, and they will be 100% complete by this summer. The current estimate of cost and the funding breakdown, the first mile from 149th to 134th, the estimate is $5.3 million. We were allocated 80% funds on that, so our match will be just over $1 million. We also received 80% match or 80% funding on the second mile from 164th to 149th. You can see the estimate on that mile is $4.4 million, and our share will be just under $900,000. The third mile will be totally funded by the city from 179th up to 164th, and the estimate on that mile is $2.9 million. So the entire project estimate is $12.6 million. The city's share will be just under $5 million. What we look forward to in the future, the federal funds will be available after October 1st this year. We estimate a letting date through ODOT for the first 2 miles in late 2011 or early 2012, and we think the construction time will be somewhere in the 18-month to 24-month range. The mile from 179th to 164th that the city will fund all on our own, we anticipate a letting date in mid to late 2012. This will be largely dependent on the City of Norman project. The City of Norman is going to widen the 2 miles south of Indian Hills on down to Tecumseh Road, so we will coordinate that with them. We think the construction time on that 3rd mile will be about 12 months. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to respond to questions.
Dennis, I have a question. If my memory serves me correctly, in the bond issue, wasn't it budgeted $8 or $9 million for Western?
There was $7 million.
$7 million, okay.
Right.
Is it possible that there could be some additional projects picked up for the balance of that, the money that we saved on that, or?
With what we've already spent, there's on utility relocation and right-of-way acquisition, there's $5.6 million left out of that $7 million. Our match for the 2 miles that we have to provide 20% plus the mile all on our own is about $4.8 million. So there could be some monies left over. We just won't know until those bids are received.
But it doesn't seem to be a significant amount.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, sir, it does not.
But if history serves, there is a dedicated drag strip through there. So unfortunately, that's how Southwestern is.
Comments or questions for Dennis on the Western Avenue Street improvements? All right. Other items from the city manager reports?
Just want to highlight for a second the March sales and use tax. It was a very good month, 9.24% above the March of 10 collections. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a mixed message here, because that was really good, but we need to be mindful when we go back that it's still only 2.3% over what the March check was 2 years ago in 2009. And if you take a look at 2011 year-to-date, fiscal year-to-date, it's just 1.7% over what we were year-to-date 2 years ago in fiscal year 2009. And so that's a cautionary note that I'm giving you with that. But then if you go ahead and look into the report and see the city comparison as to how we compare with the other cities in the metro area, we're clearly outperforming all the other suburban areas out there. And so that's very, very positive. I can't tell you exactly what we attribute that to, but both year-to-date and for the month, we outperformed any other community in the metro area. So anyways, it's interesting numbers. We'll go into these more details as we get into the budget process.
Comments or questions on the city manager reports? I lost my agenda. Here it is. Citizens to be heard. We have one person who has signed up, Shirley Gamble. Good morning, Shirley. If you'll pull the microphone down, we'll
My name is Shirley Gamble.
Shirley, can you pull the microphone down a little bit so we can hear you better?
I can't help it if I'm short. I live at 3501 North Martin Luther King. I only have 3 things to discuss with you today, but it will interest you. It'll interest you. In fact, all of you. You've talked for 2 hours, and all of your problems could be solved almost for more money. There is more money, and you're not collecting it. I'm going to show you. I don't have any financial interest in this. This is a privately owned, don't know what to call it. They call it a school, an academy. It's at 3301 North Martin Luther King. It is changing ownership probably today. All of the things I'm giving you, I can swear to. But I don't think you know. This is a air view of buildings. Now, this is what you're getting taxes for. I got this yesterday. There's 5 buildings that the tax man found. The map I'm giving you, there's 13. There's a tennis court, all taxable. I just think that if you really collected what you're due, most of your problems would be over. That isn't my only concern of this particular school. They specialize in autistic children. They make no provision for keeping them confined. On the 16th of March, I witnessed about an 11 or 12-year-old autistic boy being beaten with a 1x4, about 32 inches long, in my yard. And I don't mean he was hit with the board. He was beaten till I think he was unconscious. Police were called, ambulance was called. The beater was an employee of this particular school, Camelot. The ambulance was waved away. They said, oh, he will be all right. But at that time, I thought he was unconscious. I made a 911 call. I saw every minute of this. If you will listen to the 911 call, I ordered the ambulance. I said, I think this man is going to kill this 11-year-old boy. He was beaten repeatedly with this board. And when the ambulance came, they never got out of the ambulance. They were waved away by the caretakers of Camelot. The boy is laying unconscious on the ground. 4 other employees had come from Camelot across my fence, just like the boy did. They had to make a gurney, 2 on one side, 2 on the other, to carry this unconscious boy to their van. And he was taken back to their facility, not to a hospital. This was a boy, he had run off, and the police and all of them explained to me, well, really, he deserved what he got. He ran off, and he had beaten 2 other boys in their building in Camelot, beaten them just before he ran away. And he had bitten one boy so bad it had to have stitches just before he ran away. Their rationale was if anybody would do that, they deserved whatever they got. I don't think the kid deserved 1 whack with a 1x4. Then I was told by the police within 3 hours of this, a young lady was taken from there with a broken arm. I don't know what they've got going over there, but I am afraid of them. If a caretaker would beat a young autistic boy till he was unconscious and not call an ambulance, they'll let him sleep it off, and I guess he would. This has upset me. I want peaceful existence. Mr. White knows what that means. And I've lived there 45 years. I know this place. It started as a Catholic church and an orphanage, and it has worked its way up where they don't have control of these children. If this young man that was beaten could beat up 2 other young men and bite another one, what could he do to an old lady? You know, I am not safe in my home anymore. I don't know when they're going to jump over my fence. Let me remind you, this beating happened in my front yard, and I was there all the time. The beater was not arrested. They seemed to think he had a right to because he had run off, and he had beat up the other boys. This drives me absolutely bananas, as you can tell. Now, I went to the trouble of finding out about their tax situation. I gave you an aerial view. There's 13 taxable buildings on their lot. I picked this up yesterday from the tax people. They are paying for 5 buildings. 5. That's the difference. You could be getting the money for 13 buildings. We got a tennis court on there, which they collect. This is a privately owned. This is not a charity. If you just got the money from this, you might have money for your trolley or whatever. I am just amazed that no one, the fire department especially, doesn't know. They don't even have a map of what's there. I asked the fire department at Spring Lake, if you were called, where would you go? You say, I have a fire at 3301. Where would you go? How could you get in there? They took me to their truck, and they showed me the map on their little computer that this city gives to them. And it only tells the fire department of these 5 buildings. What if there's a kid in the rest of the buildings? And how could the fire people get to them? This is a fire trap in my estimation. They get by with it. They have a big gate, and you're not welcome. And whoever is in charge of fire safety, they told me, the firemen, they did not know there was 13 buildings on this lot. And on top of this changed ownership this week. It's going to be called Rose Rock Academy. And they will own up to 35 children at this facility. And this week there'll be 35 more coming up out of Georgia or Alabama. They can't keep what they've got on their property. There must be some way to keep these children in their property, because I fear for my safety. Not that the little boy would come over intentionally.
Shirley, I think you've made your point. We really appreciate you.
Will you do something, Mr. Cornett?
Well, I think you've made a great presentation today, but I can't give you a response this morning. Thanks for coming down, though.
Well, something will happen, that we don't want to happen.
I understand.
Thank you for your time.
We have no executive session. We're ready to adjourn? We're adjourned.